Ready? Special meeting of the Plaquemines Council as serving as the governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District will now come to order. Machine is open for roll call. And all members are present. If we'll all stand, Commissioner Schultz will lead us in a prayer, and Commissioner McCarthy will lead us in a pledge.
Let's pray. We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right.
Amen.
Amen. Let's face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I know this is out of the ordinary, but it's one of these issues that we have to address. I want to personally thank every member on this council for the efforts that they've taken to get to a level of understanding from where we were last Thursday to a level of understanding today. I want to thank the Port Administration for participating in that, and also want to thank representatives from Tallgrass who made themselves available for each and every one of us to have conversation, to do our due diligence, and to come to some level of understanding. With that, we'll go to the agenda.
Item 2, introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
We have one for Commissioner Gui, an ordinance to appropriate $100,000 for inspection and initial analysis of deficiencies identified by structure recall number 020142, as listed in correspondence received from the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development on January 30th, 2023, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Item 3, ordinances and resolutions on second reading and final passage. 3A, a resolution to authorize the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District in accordance with the CEA and lease agreement to sell the property identified within Exhibit B of the lease agreement to Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Gui.
I will offer. Ask for a second. Second by Commissioner McCarty. As I stated earlier, this piece of legislation was on the agenda for our last council meeting on Thursday. During the course of that meeting, prior to that meeting, it became quite apparent that there was further discussion that had to be had. And I'm pretty comfortable now that we've all said what we had to say. And I'll leave it at that, but I would like to open up the floor to any commissioners who have comments to make at this time. Start off with Commissioner Konovich.
Thank you. I think we should have had this before the council meeting. Calling a special meeting to vote on this, I don't think is right. Deferred it, so it should have went to the next meeting. If they wanted us to know everything, they should have had it a week before the council meeting, the meetings we had with Tallgrass. Said, and I'm not for selling it. I represent 99% commercial fishermen, and CPRA doesn't care about my constituents. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Habo. Commissioner Champagne.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a three-point statement. Number one, this council did not delay this action in order to play some type of game or subterfuge, but rather to look deliberately and intelligently at a contract that this council did not initiate. We wanted to ensure that we considered all options on the table and can act in a manner that would benefit the entire parish. Point number two, we are unanimously opposed to the Mid-Barataria freshwater diversion and this council affirmed that with a unanimous vote against it at last council meeting on January 26, 2023. We deferred the vote on this issue so that we could explore all options and look for other potential buyers other than the CPRA, who, against our will, is now going to purchase the land and proceed with construction on a project that will forever alter our way of life in Plaquemines Parish. We unanimously want to protect our coast, but there are other less expensive and less impactful options that were not even considered. Although the votes today may not reflect it, do not doubt our unity and resolve on this issue. And point number 3, the council is here today because we want future investors who may be viewing Plaquemines Parish with a weary eye because of today's proceedings to know that we will always honor our contracts and commitments, and we will ensure that those contracts are rock solid in the future and beneficial to all parties in this great parish. And I close with the fact that I have full faith and confidence in our new port director, Mr. Charles Tillison, to lead this port to be the best port in the region. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Champagne. Commissioner McCarty?
I'd like to speak to this with a light toward having a business mind and trying to make the best decision for the parish at this moment, but also having ancestors who have been oystermen and having current family members who are oystermen. This is going to impact many people, not just in Plaquemines Parish, but I want you to know, and I'm speaking to people who are not in this audience as well, CPRA, etc. United we stand. Plainly, this is a deplorable contract that was signed in the beginning. Prior circumstances leading up to and including the contract between Tallgrass and CPRA, allowing CPRA to purchase the land, although Tallgrass is under threat of eminent domain if they keep the land, deserves strong condemnation. I do not want to vote for this. That said, some of the ramifications of CPR developing the diversion in Plaquemines Parish, all crabs, shrimp, and oysters will be eradicated, wiped out from Plaquemines Parish. And it goes beyond Plaquemines Parish. The salinity level, the lower water temperature that will be in Barataria Bay because of the diversion will wipe out the seafood throughout Barataria Bay, but also damage is expected to be affected as far away as Texas. The diversion gates will be open in the spring. All species spawn in the spring. All species spawn in the spring. So we're not only talking oysters. Again, we're talking shrimp, crabs, and then the smaller species that they feed upon, that the fish feed upon. Oysters take 3 years to cultivate at $200,000 per acre. But even at that, that will not be possible here in Plaquemines Parish. The oyster is the canary in the coal mine. One oyster filters 50 gallons of water per day. But without the oysters, everything else will die. What I'm trying to say, if oysters will die, everything else will die. So then, oysters make up the bed of the floor of the inlands. What is going to spawn in that area without the oyster shells? Further consequences. The trickle-down effect will affect our economy, not only Plaquemines, but South Louisiana. Plaquemines is the second largest commercial fishing fleet in the United States. Let's take a year when we had no hurricanes and thus we had a stable environment. In 2017, Plaquemines harvested $132 million in seafood. Of that, $22 million were brown shrimp. Of the $22 million that were brown shrimp, 41% of that came from Plaquemines Parish and Barataria Bay. 41%. People will lose their jobs. It's not just the environmental effect, it's the economy. Generations of fishermen will have to stop producing seafood in Louisiana. When I spoke to you yesterday, thought that it was only one generation or two generations. But we cannot relocate the oyster beds, I've been told. So that means all of seafood production ends now with CPRA building the diversion. Supporting industries will also be affected. So not only the commercial fishermen, but the charter fishermen, recreational fishing. How many people come to New Orleans and then to eat our seafood from Plaquemines Parish at a restaurant and then want to go on a trip to go catch some seafood out of Plaquemines Parish? This not only hurts Plaquemines Parish, but it hurts St. Bernard, because St. Bernard's tax base is based on charter fishing, on recreational fishing. On any given weekend, you will see over 300 boat trailers at a dock that have over $100,000 boats that fit on those trailers. Now think about it. If people cannot go fishing, what will provoke them to want to even buy a fishing boat, to buy tackle, to go get gas here, there? How many people are losing their jobs because CPRA is putting a diversion on our land? So it not only affects Plaquemines Parish. By the way, we're also affecting truck drivers and processing plants. And then the everyday consumer is going to be affected. You, me, where are we going to get our seafood from? Is it going to come from Louisiana? We now have a law that says that restaurants have to tell you if the seafood is not from Louisiana. What is that going to look like to tourists who come to New Orleans and they have to see on that menu, seafood is not from Louisiana? That's not only affecting Plaquemines Parish. Now we're talking about the whole tourist region of South Louisiana. So Louisiana produces 25% of all seafood in the United States. Louisiana restaurants will not be able to serve Louisiana seafood. One restaurant, Acme Restaurant, serves 80 million oysters per year. I guess Acme's going to go out of business. Or where are they going to, or how much will you pay for an oyster when the oyster comes from out of state? Okay, so tallgrass. Yesterday when I spoke with you, I asked, since you stated that you feel that you're in a bind, because if you don't sell this land, you're going to have land that is worthless because it's going to be appropriated, and the land that would be available has a cultural significance to the parish, to people in the parish. Plainly, there's a graveyard on the land. So you would not be able to use the land that would be available to you. And so I asked, since you feel this is a bad deal for you as well, will you consider coming back to Plaquemines Parish for any other entity, any other business? And I think you said that you would consider it. And I see heads nodding yes. I thank everyone for listening, and I'm going to allow other people to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner McCarty. Commissioner Shields.
So first of all, we reaffirmed last week that this board is against the diversion. 9-0 vote. We are 100% against the diversion. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a contract that was signed by no one at this table and no one at that table. It's a completely new day. And I've read through that contract 2 times since Monday, trying to understand all the ins and outs. I've consulted with legal. And unfortunately, the contract is what it is. Reading through it, we have to think, if we breach the contract, what is going to happen most likely? Which is, we're probably going to get sued, and we probably will lose. No guarantee. There's never any guarantee in lawsuits. But we have to look at the future of this port and this parish. We are also council members of the parish. If we breach the contract, what will that look like not only to the port world, but to the council on future contracts, if we're willing to just breach contracts? Unfortunately, this council has been put in a tough situation. I have been torn back and forth on my vote, but I have to look at my fiduciary responsibility to the port and knowing what will happen if we breach the contract. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Shields. Commissioner Jurisich.
Yes, I didn't attend the meetings with Tallgrass because the few questions I have I wanted to ask here. So would someone who's representing Tallgrass please step to the mic?
Commissioner Stephen Davidson, Vice President of Government Affairs for Tallgrass. Sorry, I closed your computer.
All right, thank you for stepping up to the mic. When Tallgrass bought this property, were they aware that CPRA had a project plan for that same property?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Commissioner. Jason, can I invite Jason Nonamaker, who's our in-house counsel? Jason, and this is Matt Kegg, who's our Director of Terminals.
Hi, Commissioner. I do believe that the master plan described the diversion project back in 2018. So there was some knowledge of the diversion project when we started this transaction.
Okay. So knowing that, y'all still went ahead and bought the property because y'all wanted to develop it, right?
That's correct.
And why didn't we develop it?
I think there's kind of 2 main things that occurred since then, sir. Number one, as you're thinking about kind of the time frame with the lifting of the crude oil export ban, there was a big rush to try to build oil terminals to get those molecules to markets overseas. As time has progressed, you have the market conditions changing, which continue to make that type of large-scale investment for export kind of untenable with the current business plans for Tallgrass. But on top of that, we identified, and as we were going through the cultural survey work, the thing that the community members knew about that the Councilman McCarty referenced, which is the cemeteries, and at that point, paused and announced in 2021 we were pausing. And so I would say it's kind of twofold. The biggest change is the change in market, right? The change in the economic kind of value proposition for us. But then the other main point is trying to build on a portion of property that does have the graves of enslaved people and artifacts there is just a very difficult thing and something we weren't interested in doing.
So it was the grave site basically that took, with the oil exports and everything going on, That's what got y'all to back off?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, the economics of oil exporting and the market changing, and then, yes, the other piece as well, correct.
Okay. That's what I want to, reiterate. You're still going to sell it to CPRA. Had that permit not been issued to CPRA prior to Christmas and they didn't have a permit in their hand, would they be buying that property today?
Yes, sir.
They would have bought it without
Yeah,
a permit.
That's correct. Well, to be technically clear, I'm not here for CPRA. I can't comment on their plans, but what I can say is our project was, our negotiations with them have been long and ongoing, and, the release of the permit from the Army Corps happening a couple days before we announced this publicly is, complete coincidence.
And how long were those negotiations with CPR ongoing?
1 second, Councilman, let me.
Yeah, hi, Matt Kegg, Director of Terminals. Thank you for the time today. As Stephen mentioned, we signed the lease agreement with the port in 2018 with the original goal of trying to develop an oil terminal there. In 2021, we announced a reappraisal of the project and of the site. And at that point in time, we evaluated a number of different opportunities that were sensitive to the cultural artifacts on the site, but also representative of the overall market at the time. And through that process, as we worked closer and closer to December 28th, Tallgrass determined that it was maybe our best option to try to sell the property. And so in that point in time, we surveyed the market to try to understand who are the people that are potentially interested in buying the property. And CPRA to date has always been kind of an elephant in the room. And so it made a lot of sense for us to open those discussions to try to understand if there's synergy within that offering there. And we selected CPRA not only because they had their project slated there, but also their commitment to Ironton, which was something that we were very aligned on.
So when you say you selected CPRA, was there anybody else interested in it?
Yes, there were other parties interested. However, the agreement that we reached with CPRA was most palatable to Tallgrass.
Well, speaking on behalf of my constituents, it's a sad day to know that we're going to sell this to the same entity that's going to put them out of business, kill their culture, kill their families. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurcic. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you. My position haven't changed since last week that I said I was voting yes with a statement. I never trusted Tallgrass when it first came to the council. I remember Judge Reeves Ortiz, and we was in Washington. I just became the chairman of the organization. He said, I really feel sorry for that young man because he's like a lost ball in tall grass. And everything with tall grass, you get lost trying to understand it. One of the things that really taught me about tall grass, and I'm only voting yes because the money going to community, Ironton historic community that I have a love for and that community could benefit for, but I know there's a lot of devil in the detail. So when it comes down to the diversion and tall grass, it's like the lesser two evil for me. And so I'm going with the part of good Ironton. But tall grass, when it went into the Rosalie Plantation, they're using the word cultural artifact today, but they remove human remains out of that. So they when they get the sanctity of black life, and I can't ever forget that. Because how can a company as sophisticated as they are not to have somebody in that company know that if you have a plantation, all enslaved people had to be buried on that property? I can't believe they didn't know that. So I don't have any love for tall grass. My vote for this project is only so that the community of Ironton can get the $6 million, how many millions of dollars involved in it, because that historical community could use it, and I'm hoping to use wide. And I talked to Councilman Friend, and I hope he makes sure that community understand when they make an agreement with tall grass, you got to really question where they at. I know for a fact tall grass don't have any love for Ironton community. I'm clear on that. They're doing that because the fact that they know that they remove human remains from that cemetery, which was illegal on all fronts, and giving Ironton. So to me, I know that. So without going any farther, I'm voting yes so that the community of Ironton could get the $3 million, $6 million, but it's the lesser two evils for me, and that's my position.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Commissioner LaFrance.
Yes, I too, Reverend Edwards, going to support this only because of the residents of Ironton. My people have been through a lot. Ever since Katrina, some of the folks in there lost their home 3 to 4 times. This has been a community that has been neglected and been neglected for years and years. The purchase agreement, again, I don't support CPRA. I don't support that freshwater diversion. However, I do support coastal restoration. And I don't like the idea of they dingling this money over in front of my people. But it's a sad situation. It's a hard decision. But I guess that's the reason why we make the big bucks, huh? So, again, it's a hard decision, but it's an easy decision when I think about people. And we are elected to represent people. And I'm elected to represent this district. Again, I do not support that freshwater diversion, and I'm only supporting this because of the people from Ironton. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner LaFrance. Commissioner Konovich, you have additional comments?
After our meeting last night, I asked y'all about who built the levee back there and pipe and like a separator. Did y'all ever find out who did that? Because I can't find any permits and to do any of that work back there. Then I asked y'all the location of the graveyard. So if that levee is what I'm thinking is where CPRA is put in, that's going to build their diversion, how close to the graveyard is it? Is the graveyard between that levee in Arlington or the levee in Energy?
Yeah, Councilman, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not familiar enough with the details of CPRA's plan, but I do know that they had planned a community meeting today to kind of talk about those types of things, and we had asked that they delay to kind of sort out whether or not what was occurring. But I would say that it's certainly something we can ask them to come and talk to you about. But unfortunately, I'm not familiar enough with the specifics of their.
Because being the historian for the parish, I know about where the plantation was. I don't have a pinpoint exactly where the graveyard was, but how are they going to dig a 400-foot wide canal and not dig up any bones? I don't understand that. And then we talked about the $6 million, and y'all was going to put a committee together to see how that's dispersed.
Yes, Councilman, that's correct. So in the agreement, there's about a 10-page document, which is an MOA with CPRA, and what it's in there. It's public. You're welcome to share it with any of your constituents who are curious. But on that, there will be a committee appointed by a couple of different entities. Ironton will have representation. Plaquemines Parish, the Plaquemines president will be able to appoint folks. CPRA and ourselves as the investors. Now, And then there will be 3 other individuals that can be appointed at large. Our hope is that we can get, after the deal is closed, the opportunity to start beginning to establish that committee and starting to look forward about how we ensure that those dollars are invested. But that portion of the agreement is in the contract.
Because Arlington thinks they're getting $6 million, but that committee could put it throughout Plaquemines Parish, right?
The intention of the committee when we formed it or we came up with the idea with CPRA was really to try to find a way to invest those dollars in and around Ironton. And so the concept here would be that there is a very real need by the neighbors that we had and the opportunity for us to, through their guidance and their direction, invest those dollars. But to your point, it is a large pool of money, and what the committee will be tasked with doing is creating a system of bylaws that is equitable and above board and keeps track and publicly reports. And so being able to solicit from the community at large. And so, again, the committee itself is called the Ironton and Southeast Louisiana Committee. We did that deliberately. Ironton is kind of the first focus. They're the community that was with us. But to your point, there is the ability, should the committee decide that dollars should be spent a little bit more broadly in certain areas here and there, it's certainly on the table. But again, the focus is Ironton. That's
Thank you.
Commissioner Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple comments I have is, I guess, relating to the contract. As Mr. Schultz brought up, nobody up here was involved in that, as well as, I'm not going to do it. So a couple things that 32 days I've been in office that I've really did a lot of research on this last few days. Some of the stuff that this contract should have never, ever been signed. There was way too many red flags that I read. And I'm no contract expert, but I read it. Some of the key points that I brought up that I saw, when the port assumed ownership of this property or project, this property got taken off the tax rolls. So what does that mean? It means we don't get any money from it. It means we lose out. Our schools lose out. Our government loses out. Our hospitals lose out. Everybody loses by this deal, which was part of this contract. And I have to agree with Councilman LaFrance. The Ironton community has suffered too long. I have friends, co-workers when I was working, schoolmates that still live in the community, and it's suffered way too long. This will help them. But again, Mr. France, I will commit to you guys and this board, the suffering of a community stops. It stops, and that's all communities. We have to do a better job as a government, as port commissioners. We got to do a better job of looking out for our constituents and our people. Some other things I brought in, I've researched and found out. This CPRA deal goes back 2011. There's some documentation if anybody would like to see it. So it's been in the works. Matter of fact, it says it right here. Louisiana officials were developing plans for the most expensive coastal restoration project in the state history. So you don't think they did a little homework for that? The most expensive? They just didn't come in here looking. They had a plan, and I guess it was a very good plan for them. Terrible for us, very good for them. And as somebody brought up too, I'll speak on it. This board, this government is 100% behind coastal restoration. I spoke with many commercial fishermen, oystermen. They are behind coastal restoration. There's other ways to do it, cheaper ways to do it, and that'll last longer than what's going on here. Bad deal for everybody with this. I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Edwards, some final comments, and then we'll bring in the Port Administration in case they have any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me come back. But I just want to add something that Commissioner Newton said about the property tax. When Tallgrass was in Pearl Ash, I didn't know who Tallgrass was, but their selling thing was property tax, how they was going to benefit. That was the whole pitch line of that. But the other thing I'm concerned about, I got a flyer that Tallgrass was having a meeting in Ironton, right? You have the councilman from that district didn't know anything about it. You stand up here talking about you're going to have this board made of several people, yet you go do a pony and dog show in the community of Ironton. That's disingenuous in all kind of ways. So again, you know, you're playing game with the community. Because here you said Ironton, the sole purpose of it, but then you're saying that, no, you're going to have other people involved in it, making decisions. I didn't think you should have went in Ironton at all to do any pony and dog show, especially when you never had a meeting with the council member, you never got together with our parish president and that board you talked about, so that everybody can be clear on that. When you do moves like that, you divide the community, you know, and I don't know if that was your goal, putting on this pony and dog show to divide this community. So again, it's more reason why I'm hoping that the community in Ironton, you know, really understand that you're really not their friend. I want to say that over and over. And again, I'm for coastal restoration, you know, but I'm totally against what you're about. So thank you, Chairman, for giving me that opportunity.
I'd like to, without objection, I would like to close comments at this time from the board. Any objection? Mr. Tillotson, Ms. Melissa, if you did have anything you'd like to add, this was your time to do it.
I believe that the board hit on all of the contractual points, but that is correct. What's on the agenda today is simply based on the terms that are in the lease. So we're not doing anything that we're not legally obligated to do, just simply from the face of the contract.
Good. Any further comments from anyone from Tallgrass? Because I am going to ask the public, because of the nature of this issue, if there are any comments from the public. But before I do that, anything, Matt, we good?
Chairman, Council, I don't have a lot to say. I think we've covered pretty much everything in the conversations. I just want to say that I appreciate you all taking the time to talk with us and ask questions and giving us the opportunity to answer them. So
I appreciate that. At this time, if there are any comments from the public, I'd appreciate if you could keep them brief. We have really brought out a lot of issues and made some conclusions based on what was brought out and the information that we had. So I don't want to rehash everything. But if there's anyone from the public that would like to make a comment, you're more than welcome to do it. I just recommend you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I'm Donald Valle, live in Jesuit Bends. I think pretty much all you all are familiar with me from the previous council. First off, let me thank you all for giving you time to be councilman again. This is going to be a task for the next 4 years. It's going to be way beyond what anybody ever anticipated to be. Thank you, Mr. Tillotson, for coming aboard. I know you do a good job for us. What I haven't heard from you all is what are you going to do with this thing? We've talked about this diversion for 2, 3, 4 years now. We all know it was possibly coming, and you have an opportunity right now to kill it. But I haven't heard what you said in the alternative. What happens if you do vote against it? What's the alternative and what's the choices? And legally, where do you go with this thing moving forward? All you all established for the entire parish that you are against the diversion. Unfortunately, Galton, you're a friend of mine. You've been pushing a corner that's untenable to put your tenant, your property owners, and your constituents ahead of everybody else in this parish for the diversion. I hate to have somebody hold that over my head. I mean, I don't know how you can do it. I know you've sympathized with the Ironton town, as everybody has, but you shouldn't. You have to make a tough decision. If you have abilities to stop the diversion now, which has been your wish in the previous administration and this administration's wish, you need to vote that way. If it takes to buy Carlton's vote, and I'll use it very loosely, and you guys better find $6 million and get him to vote against it. I'll say that as a friend of mine. Okay, there's no insult to Carlton by any means. I would hope you consider. I hope someone could answer. What's the alternative on this thing? And then what are we going to do for the rest of the parish? This is a major economic development issue that you're taking on right now. And you can't replace it very easily. I don't know if you can stop the diversion. I've read their reports. I've read this contract numerous times. It's terrible. We all know that already. I hope you won't let any of these things happen again. But I'm going to keep it short, Mr. Goodwin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valley. If there's no other comment, I would like to make a closing statement and vote. Is there any objections from the council for that? Please, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Major Tracy Riley, U.S. Army retired, and I am a resident of Plaquemines Parish, 13482 Highway 23. I have family that live in the Ironton community, and I am not here to argue with any of my co-residents, but you know, as someone who has been involved with attempting to help my family members rebuild and relocate back to their homes since the storm, I find it an insult that the community of Ironton, which has been for 2 years attempting to follow all of the rules, fill out all the applications, talk to all of the leadership, and yet find that still they have human remains parked in the front of their entryway that they have to pass every day that they come home, that they are being pitted against an industry in the community. Get the assistance that they need, or be viewed as taking from the fishermen. That's not fair. If we are really about doing the right thing, I can't even believe we're standing here talking about violating a contract that was signed and executed years ago. Before you've mostly mentioned, many of you weren't even here when it was executed. So to use this as an opportunity to rehear arguments about a decision that your predecessors have already made, to me, is improper and out of place. If there is a process for reviewing old legislation, use those means, but please don't use this as a means to break a law to get another end out of a decision that was made years ago. That's not fair to the people who are out here suffering every day, attempting to get some assistance from somewhere to have a roof over their heads. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Come on, ma'am. If you would, when you get to the podium, just state your name. Jalen, see if you can help her. State your name and your address, please.
My name is
bend the
Pearl.
mic. Jalen, bend the mic down. Hey, Pearl.
My name is Pearl Jennifer Silv. I've been in Ironton for 82 years. And the times that we have had so much floods, lots of us right now is homeless, where we don't have a decent home of our own, a little FEMA trailer. Some people don't have that. I don't think it's fair, where they should have done something about that levee back there. They ain't trying to do nothing about it. And the little mud they put there is going to be washed away. So the people from Lafitte, the water comes over on us. My house was completely gone. So I'm angry in a way because I don't have a house. That was my home. So we need some help, and we need help from whoever that levy for back there, because somebody know who is it for. And I lives in Arlington, 113 Johnson Street.
Thank you, Ms. Pearl. And it's good to see you again. I haven't
Thank you,
seen in
Mr.
a while.
Bowie.
Yes, ma'am. A few comments I'd like to make, and I'm going to call for the vote. First of all, the real issue today, I realize the real issue today that's on the table, that's in black and white and written, is do we violate the contract? But there's more to it than that, and I have given latitude as to the discussion and let it go in different areas because I think it had to be said. It all had to be said. And I did that with no reluctance whatsoever. I felt that everyone, because of the nature of this issue, had to have their time to say their piece. And I want to say that it's my opinion that everyone who has spoken has done so in a very respectful manner, that your feelings have been honest and true, and I think your feelings have been factual too. So I appreciate that as sitting here with this gavel to make sure that a meeting is run appropriately. You've really made that easy for me today because of the way we've all handled ourselves. So with that, I'm going to call the question. Machine is open. And the motion passes 6-3. Next item.
4, new business. 4A, resolutions wherein suspension is being sought. There are none. 4B, discussion by the Executive Port Director regarding the Point LaHash Ferry. Commissioner Gui.
Yes, Director Tillotson, I know that the last couple of days have been kind of frantic based on what we were issued 2 days ago, and I would like you, on behalf of not only council members who may have not had the opportunity to be apprised of all of the issues surrounding that, but also so the public can understand, if you could make some comments and give us some details as to what's going on at the Point LaHash Ferry ramp.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We received notice Monday the 30th at around 5 p.m. on an email while we were attending a community meeting on the East Bank that the Point LaHash ferry ramp was to be condemned because it was no longer suitable for vehicle transportation. As of today, we have shut the Point LaHash ferry down, and we are running the Belle Chase ferry for 18 hours a day. And we're going to do that until further notice. Tomorrow morning, we have a couple of contractors coming out to assess the ramp on the West Bank. Apparently there's some structural issues on a beam above the water, and there's some additional concerns that's actually in the water on the Dolphins. So we'll have a better feel for what the total costs will be sometime early next week. But for the time being, we'll continue to run the Belle Chase ferry for 18 hours a day, starting at 5 a.m. in the morning until 10:30 at night.
And before I open to the council members, an ordinance actually was introduced today. The purpose of the ordinance is really anticipatory. Are we going to need funding quickly? So as for the members of the board, when you get your introduction, the purpose of that introduction is to put some money into the ferry ramp line item. We don't know what that number needs to be, but we felt should put something in there so that at the next meeting, if we need to appropriate some funds for some action, that we'll be able to do that. And I know that until you get the analysis from the structural engineers and stuff, you really can't comment on what it's going to cost, but, we're all aware of that, and we're just waiting on your report.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Konovich.
Is there a reason 18 and not 24, since we paying them 12 hours a day anyway?
Please repeat.
Why not run it 24 hours a day? Each crew gets paid 12 hours a day, right?
They get paid 12 hours a day. Right now, the hourly rate changed, but they're still having the same annual rate. But we are looking at all of the options for running 24/7 operations in the future, but we're still evaluating that.
Because why did you pick 18 hours instead of 24?
We picked 18 because that's the most traffic. After 10:30, the traffic is 0 to none.
Thank
you. In addition, I would just like to add that was also questioned at the community meeting that we attended on Monday, on whether we could extend the hours earlier in the morning, 5 a.m. to at least 10 p.m. at night. So, we are being responsive to the community, and I want to thank Councilman Edwards for inviting the port to a community meeting on Monday. It was a very good meeting. I think we learned a lot, we listened, and we will be adjusting our business plan based on community needs. What's that?
I found out that you found out what the people feel.
I found out firsthand. But I will tell you, I appreciated the passion. And my second day on the job, I was on the ground on the East Bank, and I'll be boots on the ground again. And we have some challenges with the ferry. Didn't just happen over the last year. This has been systemic. It's gone on for a long time, and we're committed to fixing it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And also that we're committed to a plan, a
Correct.
future plan. There's a lot of things in the works. And I just want to expand when Commissioner Konovich said that Director Tillotson understood. There was no ferry to bring anyone to Belchase. So the director had to drive through New Orleans if he wanted to come to the West Bank. And all I told him was God works in strange ways to make us realize stuff. Yeah,
that's for sure.
Commissioner LaFrance.
Yes, how did the ramp, how did it get reported?
It was interesting. We received the email actually as we were in the meeting, the community meeting on Monday. It was the report was by the DOTD and went to the parish, and we received an email. Looks like it was timestamped 4/56, which we were in the process of starting the community meeting at that time. So I gained awareness of it during the meeting, and I will say that there's been some questions about whether or not people knew, that this was an issue with DOTD, and it was definitely my first time being made aware. And I will tell you that I'm acting promptly to make sure that we fix this right the first time.
Yes, because coming to the council meeting, I know Mr. Konovich, and I know Dr. Gouy. Remember, I used to always ask about that inspection of that ramp. And they always said that it was up, the inspection was good.
We voted on it last year.
So again, what has to be replaced?
As of right now, we know that there's a piece of structural steel above water that's being questioned, and another piece that's associated with one of the dolphins. And we're talking on the west bank, not on the east bank.
Yeah, the West Bank, well, that's my district.
Yes.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, I would just like to reiterate, Mr. Brown actually has a couple of contractors that are going to be on the ground tomorrow morning, and we also have DOTD that's going to be there, and we'll have a better assessment. And by early next week, we should have a general feel for how much the repair is going to cost and how long it's going to take.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And as soon as that information becomes available, we'll all get a copy of that.
That is
We'll
correct.
all get a copy.
Yes.
But it's not available now. Commissioner Schultz.
I was really going to ask what Commissioner LaFrance asked, because I remember we voted approving the inspections to the DOTD. So this is the second time in the past 3-4 years that this happened. So I know that's before you, but we need to work on this where this does not happen again, where we are inspecting and giving accurate reports where we're not 2 months later finding out from DOTD that's failing. Worst case scenario, how long do you anticipate? I know we don't have the cost. I know you don't know, but worst case scenario, what do you estimate?
At this point, Councilman Schultz, I would prefer not to guess.
Okay.
Because I do not know.
Okay, that's fine.
But what I will tell you is we will be on the ground tomorrow, and we'll have a basic understanding. And I will also like to say that I too feel that it is an insult to the port for the state to come in and do something like this without me having knowledge. And I'm probably one day past the period of being the new guy, so I own it, and we're developing a plan to fix it.
And I watched your meeting from Monday night, Reverend Edwards, and I saw the comments, and I had residents that have family. They're residents of my district, but they have family on East Bank. And I know I talked to Jalen earlier this week. I talked to you, but we need to find a long-term solution for extended hours. And I think that's a commitment, I would assume, from this board that we've all talked about. So I'm looking forward to the plan, hearing about the plan y'all have.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that you cease becoming the new guy probably sometime Monday night. So those days, don't use that excuse with me
I'm here
anymore.
now. I'm boots on the ground, so I own it. And
What I'd like as chairman to request is that report that we alluded to earlier, that everything was okay, that we track that down, see who did the report, and see where that brings us. And also, Jalen, as soon as we can, I know this is in the process, is that there is a plan to relocate the ferry on the in Point LaHash. And there are a lot of moving parts there, and an update, I think we'd appreciate, I know we would, we'd appreciate an update on where we are, funding, potential grants. I know you're working on that, and as soon as that's done, you may just send all that information out to us, and if we need to discuss it publicly, we can. That works?
Yes, sir. Copy that.
Okay. I think Mr. Valley had a comment.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to reiterate what you just said. When Councilman Bartholomew was here, there was a set aside of excess funds out of a commitment to relocate the ferry landing further up the road, because it was in a condition, the last time it was inspected, it was a conditional repair that was made, not a permanent repair. Because if you recall, when Bartholomew was looking at this thing, he wanted to move the entire ferry landing down further. And there is money available somewhere budgeted for it.
Thank you, Mr. Valley.
I'm just going to tell you, just to give you an idea, I had my old company look at it, the last repair that was made, and the steel structure that was underneath. DOTD did report that to the port about how much problems were with this thing, and they were looking at extensive repairs to it, because the photographs that I saw showed all that beam rusted away, 2 beams rusted away in there. you need to look at it again.
Thank you, Mr. Valley.
Thank you.
Being no other issues to bring before the council today, I will entertain a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Konovich and seconded by Commissioner LaFrance. Machine is open.
Councilmember Edwards?
And the meeting is adjourned at 6:02 PM.